All right, good evening. Tonight we are doing webinar 6, the organic farm planning portion of our TOPP, which is Transition to Organic Partnership Planning program. Wow, I think I added an extra P on that one. One day I will get that exactly right. What I do know is who we are. We're the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. It's our mission to strengthen the capacity of West Virginia farmers markets and positively impact communities they serve by providing education, advocacy, access to healthy, locally grown foods. So that's what we do. We are in the education portion of what we do right now with our transitioning to organic partnership program offering tonight. TOPP is a USDA initiative that will invest up to $100 million over 5 years to provide education, technical assistance, and support to help producers transition to becoming organic growers and other producers as well. They do this through farmer-to-farmer networking, technical assistance and training, and community building, which is what we are doing here tonight. I want to take a moment to welcome our speaker, Isaac. And Isaac, I believe I've been pronouncing this incorrectly, so I am sorry if I have. Wegman of Next 7 Organic Farms. And I will let him go ahead and talk a little bit about them and what they have going on before we get started.
All right, greetings everybody. I'm Isaac Wigman. My wife is Holly Wigman, and we are the owners operators of Next 7 Organic Farm in Eastern Ohio, Harrison County, Ohio. And we're the caretakers for my wife's family farm that goes back. She's seventh generation in her family to know the farm, and I'm seventh generation in my family on the other side of the river here. And so Next 7 Farm is us kind of thinking about what all those ancestors did for us and what we can do, for the future in our lifetime farming here with the ground. So that's where the Next 7 Farm came from. I've been working in horticulture all my life and studied natural resources management at Hocking College before I really dove into agriculture as my career. I apologize for my phone dinging here. So after I graduated college for natural resources management, where I studied ecosystems as a whole and natural resources industries like forestry and mining and restoration work that goes along with it. A big part of what we learned there was cover mapping. And that was an invaluable skill to learn as somebody who became a farmer, because cover mapping and forming a management plan is really the basis of having a great farm plan. So I kind of fell in love with the process and started, I went and studied permaculture design and took an intensive course and became certified in this permaculture design methodology. And what the design system really is intensive planning for your interactions with your landscape in your farm and your business. All right, let's jump into it here. Okay, so farm planning for successful organic operations. If you don't have a plan, it's hard to progress in any direction with what you're doing. Maybe you're a good gardener, maybe you've got a farm and you're just kind of just doing some stuff on the farm. And that's fine. But if you're counting on it for making a living, you're going to want to really approach it from a business point of view, and take into consideration a lot of aspects. All right, let's move into the slides here. Where to start? So, if you're tuning into educational organic farming videos, chances are you're already running a farm, or have a farm, or have an interest. You're already kind of established on a land base somewhere, and you're looking at your options of what you can do, either getting into the business of farming or running your existing farm. So, I tell people to, you know, look at where you're at now, think about what your vision for where you want to be at is, and then, start filling in the details of that. And anywhere that you're not confident or sure of already, go and meet other farmers, go and meet the people who are already doing this business. Maybe you have to call people out of the blue and take a 4-hour road trip to find somebody else who knows about growing broccoli. But go seek out the people already doing it, hear about their mistakes, and skip the hard stuff on your farm plan. Skip the hard part of farming, approach it with a plan from the get-go. And if you're totally new to agriculture, um, take classes. There's a lot of good workshops being offered with county extension agencies, with nonprofit organizations. Attend conferences where farms are coming and there's educational speakers and farms representing their businesses. There's a lot of good conferences and conventions. I traveled extensively when I was younger and went to conferences and conventions all over the country. And you pick up a lot and you see what people are doing on the ground, and it's a great learning opportunity. Apprentice with a farmer. If you've never farmed and you want to, find a farmer and actually just start working for them. Even if you have to volunteer to gain some experience, get out there and gain that experience. It's invaluable, and you'll learn more from somebody who's been doing it than you ever will learning the hard way on your own. And I've done both. I've been stubborn. I've learned things my own way. I've learned things by failures and piles of failures and, wasted efforts and money. And that gets old. And then you get smarter and you start deciding that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just need to know what works. And chances are you can find somebody who's already doing what works and build from there. And if you're new or you're experienced on any level, I tell everybody, read, like there's so much information in the modern world now. And it's such a valuable tool that our ancestors didn't have on the farm. They had to know by experience. They had to learn by doing. They had to learn with their failures as they went, and learn from the people around them. And they did have some level of book knowledge and that available, but it was very different than what we have now, where we can take a picture of a disease on a plant and Google can tell you what it is, and you can get 50 different opinions on how to treat it. So there's just a vast amount of information out there with farming and agriculture and getting into it and developing your farm business. I've learned a lot from more speakers and presenters and teachers over the years. A few names of people who are kind of in the speaking circuit. Joel Salatin, great farmer out of Virginia, a lot to say about it. Elliot Coleman in Maine, great farmer, lots to say about it. And then there's a gentleman up in Quebec in Canada, Jean Martin Fortiers. He is French speaking Canadian, and a very successful market farmer with a lot of great information out there and educational stuff. So as a farmer myself, those are people that I look to, that I source information from to improve my own operations. And, you know, that information is available to the entire world now. So, you know, get out there and learn. All right, let's jump into it here. So I mentioned earlier that I was certified in permaculture design, and, you know, we're talking about farm planning, and, you know, where's design come into farm planning? And in my opinion, planning is design. You know, you're looking ahead, and you're applying these ideas to a future concept that you're going to be living. So planning is design. And um, outside of the whole entire permaculture um, idea and concept, it provides a very valuable toolbox with its principles in utilizing these ideas in planning your farm. So I'm just going to kind of run through them. A lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, and where they're not, I'll try to touch in on them a little bit. And I'll be talking about these different points kind of throughout the rest of the presentation as well. But, you know, one is observe and interact. You know, look at where you are. How's it working? Catch and store energy. You know, look at your farm as um, covered in energy flows. There's sunlight, there's localized winds from slopes and microclimates. You know, there's water. There's a lot of inherent energy in a landscape, and catching it and storing it on your farm allows you to utilize it and use it in productive ways in agriculture. Number three, obtain a yield in your farm plan. You know, what is it that you're doing all this work for, and what are you getting from it? And make sure that you're getting that soon enough and frequently enough to make it so that you can continue this work along. If you're ignoring the yield, and you're just like getting out there and doing the work, and you're not focused on your yield, eventually you'll deplete yourself and wear yourself out. And if you've got money coming from somewhere else, that's great. But if you're making your living and investing in your farm from farming, make sure you get a yield as soon as you can. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback. You know, observe, and then allow yourself to have feedback, and decide that, hey, I'm not going to do that this way anymore because it works better this way. So stay flexible, but be aware of the observation and feedback loop all the time. 5, use and value renewable resources and services. You know, our land and our farms, you know, we have these valuable ecological resources that are already present. You know, how do we utilize that in a sustainable way? How do we turn that into our agriculture business? You know, maybe instead of buying inputs, we can find a way to supply the inputs in a sustainable way from what exists on the ground on our farm and our ecosystem already. Number 6, produce no waste. That's, you know, that's a great goal, and it's not always attainable in our modern world, but thinking about it and putting that as a priority in your farm plan is going to make your business that much more efficient. And, you know, your money and your labor isn't going to end up going to the landfill and needing replaced with more financial inputs. So try to design and plan your farm to integrate the waste back into itself as much as possible. And in your designing and your thinking about your farm plan, think from broad scale patterns and then work down to the details. If you're trying to run your farm plan from in the opposite fashion, and you're planning from your details out, it's much more scattered and difficult to work. So think about your broad patterns on your farm. You know, where's the work being done? What are the crops being raised? What's the generalized vision for what's happening? And then start breaking it down into manageable, accomplishable uh, tasks that you can focus in on, and plan each detail down to down to the amount of seed and what square feet in the garden beds. But if you start at that level, it's hard to plan out. Integrate rather than segregate. If you have multiple aspects of your business or multiple aspects of your farm, find out how they're connected and use that to your advantage. It's going to put you ahead. If you're running livestock and running crops, integrate your livestock and your crops together somehow. Livestock can be valuable farm labor, worth more than hiring people if you use them correctly. Different aspects of what you're producing can feed back into each other and benefit your operation. Number 9, use small and slow solutions. I guess rather than big and fast solutions, because big and fast gets wrecked easier, and loss happens, and devastating loss. So if you start slow and you start small and make that work and become functional, you can build on it, and you're not going to be putting yourself out at the end of the day if something small doesn't perform to where you wanted it to. So dial it out on the small scale, take your time with things before you jump in full force on any pursuit on your farm. Make sure that you can do it on a small scale. Use and value diversity. So, there's a ton of diversity in our ecosystems. There's a lot of diversity in the crops that we can raise, in the products that we can put to work for us on the farm. Value that diversity. The more diverse your farm is, the more stable it's going to be. There's stability and diversity, and that works on your farm as well as in the ecosystem, and that works in your economics and your sales and marketing as well. A lot of these concepts are land-based concepts, but you can also apply these concepts to the way you're thinking about your ethereal ideas of marketing, of sales, of the energy flows involved with your efforts in business. Use these principles for that as well, not just on the landscape. So 11, use the edges and value the marginalized. It tends in the ecosystem, the most productive niches in the ecosystem tend to be where two different types of ecosystem come together. You have species from one side, species from the other side, and they're all existing in the same edge. And the same can go with farming, the same can go for business. Use the edge, value the marginalized. The edge is where the action is, and that holds true from ecosystems to communities to business. So look at how you can increase your edge. How do you integrate more of your business into the community? How do you connect with those edges? Edges is where those connections happen and that integration happens. So, think of the edges and the marginalized, and remember that, the edge is where the action's at. Creatively use and respond to change. Change is the only constant in life. We hear that said. And that's very true in a landscape. It's very true in a business. Very true when you're managing an organic farm operation. So as you're being presented these changes, life changes. Maybe you started farming when you were a single 20-year-old, and now you have 5 kids. There's changes, so you have to be able to adjust, um, and be creative in that. All right, let's keep jumping into it here. All right, so I mentioned earlier, about the permaculture design certification courses, and that it's a design process, really is what we studied there. And it's a fluid thing. There is a place to start, and in forming a plan for running an organic farm, for managing an organic farm, and getting it all figured out. The first thing that, as a farm consultant, or a crop consultant, what I'm going to ask, my client is, what are your goals? Um, what's your goals for your farm? What's your goals for your business? What are your personal goals based around this idea of all this work you're getting into? um, really be sure of what your purpose is in it, so that you know what you're working towards and you can set your aim on it. If you don't have a clear set of goals for your farming and business efforts, you end up with a lot of scattered work that isn't getting built up in forming foundations to build on. And I've done it, and that's why I'm bringing it up. First things first is set goals, know what you're after, form a plan, and work towards that. Hold a vision for yourself, for your life, for what you're working on. Find out what that intention is. That's where to start with a farm plan. 100%. Who's the farmer? What do they want? That's where to start. The farm's secondary. A farmer can farm anywhere. Land's secondary. Um, a lot of people get into farming because they have some connection to some farmland, some existing family farm business. Maybe it's been a dream. They moved to the country, buy a piece of ground. They're always dreamed of it. A lot of different reasons that people end up with ground, but as a farmer, in business, anywhere can be agricultural. Anywhere can support an ag business. It doesn't have to be a pristine, 300-acre farm. You could turn an abandoned Kmart parking lot into a farm. It just depends on your vision, on your goals, and what you're trying to do with it. So, your site, where you're working actually on the ground, determines much about how your business is going to operate. And that's where you have a lot of resources, uh, and you might not even consider them resources at this point. But look around, do a full site analysis and an assessment of your land resource, and um, that can be very in depth. It can be surface level if you need it to be, but it should be fairly in depth. Really dig deep into all aspects of your land, of your site, wherever you're going to be running your farm business. Look at your soils, look at your infrastructure, look at your access. Um, look at weather patterns, look at your ecology, what species are there. Factor everything in that's physically there, and know what you're working with, and then know also your skills on site, your abilities, your equipment. If you're not a carpenter, maybe you're not going to build the barn that you need, so you need to know that you need to hire a carpenter. So there's those aspects of it. That's where the whole design concept really comes. Once you have your vision, once you know your site, then you start developing your change that you're applying to that landscape, and and putting your energy into. And that's where you conceptualize your design. You get the broad scale picture of your business, of how you're doing it, how you're selling it. How is your life integrated into this farm plan? And how's it look on that ground? How's it look on the map? So once you get your concept, then you can design down to the details. You can get it very specific. You can form your materials lists. You can form, the costs associated with all of those inputs, and then you can form an implementation plan and make a time frame for yourself. Make a investment plan on inputs that you need and how you're approaching that. Maybe, as I mentioned earlier, you're building it as you go and starting slow and small, or maybe you're ready to, turn the key and you're going to take a loan on and get a business loan, get a farm loan, and reach out and cash out what you can on a loan so that you are operating, so that you can be making the kind of money and be meeting the goals that you need to meet, as you develop your farm business. So then you have, a dreaded payment to make, but you have all the tools, you have the infrastructure, it's all in place to be able to handle that. And if you design appropriately for it, your monthly cost on those loans can be kept to a pretty small percentage of what your operation is able to put out if you have what you need. It's harder if you don't have the right tool for the right job. The implementation plan, give yourself time to implement what you need to before you're up and running and making your sales if you can. If you're already in business, you're already making your sales, you know how much time you need to put into that. Sometimes it can be hard to develop a farm infrastructure while having to run a farm business. And I've learned that one the hard way over the years as well, that, it's hard to squeeze in extra farm projects if you're already swamp busy selling what the farm's doing already and taking care of it. So it's hard to progress the business sometimes if you don't make the time, if you don't have the conscious plan. So keep that in mind, and always reevaluate, always run an evaluation process on the functionality of your design and your management plan, and of how your lifestyle actually looks and feels for you as your farm begins to actually be a functioning operation. So always be running your observation and feedback loops with everything you do. And then you can come back into your design, you can come back into your management plan, and you can edit that into the future, so that every season you get more efficient, you get less loss, and as life throws you changes, you're able to adjust the efforts without having a total collapse of farm and business and life. So it's good to always be observing, always be feeding that feedback loop, and keep that cycle going around on the design process all the time. I'm always observing to improve my designs in what I'm working with. All right, let's move on here. Goals. I mentioned goals and how important goals are. So, make sure you evaluate your goals. Make sure that you have a little clarity of what your vision is. I've seen people jump into business. I've seen people jump into farming. I've seen people jump into buying land, um, without having a very clear purpose or vision of why. They know they like it, they know they want to do it, but but their vision for it is still a little foggy, and it might not have the outcomes they need to actually pull it off. So, you know, as a farmer, if your goal, isn't doesn't factor in your income and how much you want to make and how you want that to be, how do you want to be paid to be doing all this work as a farmer? If that's not on your goal list, you're gonna wish it was. And I know that so many people are in agriculture for a lot of reasons outside of money. I don't know if any of us would do this if it was about the money, but at the same time, if you're not clearly holding that in your vision and in your goals, you're going to find that you wish you would have, because it's such an important aspect of running a farm and running a business and being able to afford the inputs that you need to be actually pulling off the lifestyle and the business and the crops and doing what you need to do. It gets beyond stressful if you're spread too thin on a farm and you can't afford the inputs you need to operate. It's beyond stressful, and I've lived it a lot more than I like, and so it's um, so important to think about how you're generating your income from the farm and how it's reinvesting in the farm, and how you're paying yourself to be out there doing the work. And, when you're thinking about that, you can be a farmer, you can hire on, you don't have to physically be a farmer. You can manage a farm with hired help. You don't necessarily have to be out there, but you still need to be somewhat involved, and you're going to take on a lot of responsibility and a lot of time and thought and effort. Your life energy is going to be put into this farm and this business. And so what kind of lifestyle are you trying to live? It is a major goal to keep in mind with your farm plan. Um, right now, I'm 37 years old. I'm raising two small children. I got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. My wife loves farming. She loves selling at farmers markets. We homeschool. Our kids are with us in the business every day. That's the joy of the lifestyle for us, is that we're with our kids, we're with our family. They see what we do for work. They come to work with us. They're at the market, and we're with our kids. And it's a great aspect of what I'm doing that is beyond, the financial goals or the farm goals. It's a goal for my own lifestyle, as a parent and a farmer, and to be able to be there and spend that time with my family and not be coming and going and being out in the world away from my family for business is, too much. Sometimes is okay. Um, and then think about, if you're running a farm, you know, how's it running? Who's doing the work? Are you taking on employees? Do you have a family that's going to actually work with you? If you've got 4 big teenagers and a wife that wants to work, and your brother and your cousin want to help out on the farm, you're all set. I know some family business, multi-generational growers and farmers, and they don't have to hire staff because their entire family is involved. Every cousin and nephew, and everybody gets a stint of working on the farm, and everybody knows how to drive a box truck and set up at a farmer's market. So, you know, um, family farming is great for that aspect. Amish families, Amish growers I know, their whole family's out there working together. It's good. That doesn't work for everybody. So plan on finding some help. Plan on, if you need help, find help. If you're going to do it yourself, try to keep it small and manageable, and don't spread yourself so thin that you don't have any life and you're sleeping in your greenhouses, and you can't go anywhere or do anything other than run your farm. And I've done that too. So that's why that's why I mentioned that, because it's good to have balance, and it's good to not be overworked. So plan on hiring help, plan on having family help, um, plan on getting somebody to help sometime. You might have to leave for a day sometime, and it's good to have somebody that's there and knows what's going on and can pick up the ball. Another aspect of having help that a lot of us don't always consider is illness. And if you're the sole person who knows how to do the tasks, if you're the only person who's there, if you get sick, you just can't do it, and then nobody else can do it. So then you're out there sick doing it, or you're out there sick trying to show somebody else how to do it, and you're really beating yourself up. And I've done that too. So um, definitely, have some help in the world. It makes it a lot better. And then, as you're thinking about your goals as well, um, what goods and services are you trying to market? Are you trying to sell? What is it that you're actually trying to make a living from? um, what are you trying to represent in the world with your business, with your product? Maybe you want to raise the best lettuce in 3 states. Maybe you want to sell fresh eggs. Maybe you want to sell honey. um, Maybe you're into that because you're really into it. Maybe you want to specialize in hot peppers. Everybody's got their passions, and that pursue your passions for sure. Think about where the value is, why somebody wants to buy what you're doing. um, Take pride in your goods, take pride in your services, and you'll have a successful business if you meet a need that exists in the world. So keep your goals in mind. All right, let's move on here. So site analysis, this is really where I really get into things with what I do for consulting and design work. Um, Basically, as I mentioned, do a full accounting of your resources on the farm, on the land, in your neighborhood, in your community. Know your resources. What do you already have working in your favor? What could be repurposed and work in your favor? And then what do you need to acquire? What kind of new inputs? What kind of regular maintenance inputs, infrastructure inputs do you need to operate this business that you're designing, this farm that you're making a plan for? So think about those things. What do you have? What do you need? What's your goals? Look at your land, look at your water, your ecosystems, your buildings, your infrastructures, tools, transportations, vehicles, everything. Look at it like a full evaluation of what you have access to work with, and that includes people and their skills. And people and skills are really the most valuable resource you can have as far as being a farmer. Um, Barns and fields are great, but it's the people who are running those barns and fields and building those barns and plowing those fields that are getting it done. So remember that people are your most valuable resource, and that the skills they have can be priceless. So, find your help, know your skills. And, if you're not skilled at something that you need to get done, don't be afraid to hire help. Find the person who's good at what they're doing. they say the right tool, the right tool for the right job. Well, the right person has the right tool for the right job. So find them versus making it harder on yourself than you need to achieve what you need to achieve to run your business and your farm. All right. Let's here here's a kind of a little bit of a generic cover map, and you know mapping for a farmer is a really valuable tool. It and mapping more than just what's actually on the ground, but mapping your workflows, mapping your access points, planning your activities in an efficient way so that you're not running back and forth more than you need to. um it really helps to build these things into your plan, and mapping is a tool that allows you to visualize that and to make layered mapping so that you have different layers of your farm plan built into your map, and you can manage that in an aspect of being able to pull a layer off and just look at one aspect of your farm at a time. Maybe you want to look at your water lines, your water resources. Maybe you have a layer in your cover mapping for that. Maybe there's a layer for the crop fields. Maybe on top of that there's maps for the independent crop rotations. But as a whole, design from patterns down to the details, look at the big picture, and then bite it off one piece at a time and start working it down to the details. Cover mapping, huge tool. Part of your mapping in your planning should be crop plans. What are you raising? If you're farming, you're raising something. So whether that's crops or livestock, work that plan into your map, see how it looks, visualize it. And then, don't think of your map as a static thing. Don't think of your plan as a static thing. um you know every day is a new day, and it keeps going, and change is the constant. So use it to your advantage. Use calendars, make schedules, try to give yourself a generalized farm plan at least a year ahead. 3 years is going to be better. 5 years is going to be better, and 10 and 20-year plans, lifetime plans, are going to be good. But just keep in mind that they're not going to be rigid. It's a tool to work with, and you can always go and adjust it. Um, but it's a reference point for everything you're doing, and it's going to help you run your business and your farm. Your inputs, your tools, your labor hours, your harvesting, your marketing, your planting. There's so many aspects of running your farm that the details can be overwhelming. Mapping is a great tool to be able to make that a manageable task. So, integrate your mapping with your planning, and you're going to be heading in the right direction. And there's a lot of information out there to build on this. I've got years of study and experience, and teachers and everything that are going into these thoughts when I'm approaching a design plan or a management plan. So there's different schools of thought, but there's a lot of great information out there. And your county extension offices, the people on staff there, they have all the software to help you with actually cover mapping your farm. And we've worked with them quite extensively on this operation here. And it's a great tool to have. And it also gives you a reference point for projects, gives you a reference point for explaining your farm to people, to yourself even, and wrapping your head around everything that's going on. And then if you're certified organic and you're going through the organic certification process, all of this mapping and planning is really going to come in handy because you're going to need it for your certification process. So you really are going to be doing it anyways when you get into certified organic production. So you can kind of integrate it all to work together to make it a management tool and use it to your advantage as a tool versus a burden to collect all this data and make maps and why am I doing this and you know spend time on the plan and the design and it'll pay off. All right. I mentioned, think ahead a year, think ahead 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, make a multi-year management plan. Know that it's going to be flexible. Your life's going to change, but as long as you're considering all these different aspects that can go into a farm, um, our diagram here, integrated farm management, you see all these bubbles. Those can all be their own little plans that fit together on your greater farm plan. um, and find out where they connect, find out how they integrate. How does your animal husbandry help your soil management? And how is your planning, going back into your IPM and your management of your wild places, and how are those ecosystems benefiting your business and your crops. So look at how everything's connected and try to integrate it as much as possible, and it'll become a very solid thing, and it'll be alive and a living, breathing farm and a business and a life. Um, so design, implementation, maintenance, observation, feedback, and then edit your plan as you get it better, as you figure out what not to do, and you figure out what to do better. Edit your management, edit your plans, and develop, make it better. And I'd like to mention too, as a farmer, sometimes we're ambitious, sometimes we're overly ambitious, and maybe we're not scared of work, and we work very hard and take on a lot. Sometimes the most valuable thing is learning how to say no to extra stuff, no to taking on more, and being a farmer and not doing things is sometimes much more valuable than being a farmer and taking it on and doing things. So no, set healthy boundaries for yourself so that you're not setting yourself up for crash and burn cycles, keeping up with everything. It becomes unsustainable, and your business and your body and everything will suffer. So keep your plans flexible, and you know do your best to not spread yourself thin. Implementation, um, having a realistic plan. I mentioned earlier, hire the people who know how to do a job versus doing it yourself if you're not confident in it. If you need to build 30 acres of fence and you never build a fence, hire the guys who have a fence building business, invest in that, and you'll be ahead. And then you can get to farming, you can get to running your livestock and do what you're into doing, and not be struggling to build a bad fence. Um, Slow and small, get a yield. Um, Super important concepts. Even if you're not making a paycheck, to support your life from your farming efforts, you can start making something. And even if it's a little bit, even if it's $50 a week or $100 a week, that starts to add up. And then eventually maybe you can make a jump into your full time and your have business started. And it's at a level that can support yourself without being put out. And that's where getting a yield comes in. And an income stream versus a big effort trying to do something and then it doesn't work out and then it's a failure and a loss, and you start all over from scratch again. So start small, think about your income and streams, think about your farm management in a flow, in a cycle, and think about a lot of this work, a lot of this development on a farm. It's going to be years in the making, and being aware that there's a short game to play and a long game to play at the same time in farming is a valuable thing to keep in mind. All right, let's move on. Okay, observation and feedback. I've been talking about this one. So for the farmers out there who are already doing what you're doing, collect some data on yourself, make some notes, keep your records. If you're not keeping your records and you're not collecting any data on what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. And that's going to lead to losses, and you're not even going to know where those losses are. So, it's not always the first thing that we do is, track ourselves, but, keep track of the man hours that you have into accomplishing tasks. And then once you're doing that, once you know what it takes to do a specific task, it's easier to delegate that task onto other help, onto staff or hired hands. And how many hours that job should take, what it should cost you to get achieved. But if you're not collecting data, you're not going to know those things. See what works, see what doesn't. What would you like to do differently? Find your limiting factors. If you find yourself hitting walls, ask yourself why you're hitting those walls. What's holding it back from achieving the yield or achieving the success that you're working towards. And then make a plan, get rid of those limiting factors as soon as you can. And implement new strategies. Always observe, evaluate, and improve, and you'll be on the right track to farm management. And your plan is the tool that really gets you there. All right. So, if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to learn more about my consultation work, feel free to reach out. Happy to help people. I'm usually good for some free advice for a while, and then if you have a bigger project that I'm happy to hear about, maybe I can work with you. So feel free to reach out.
Looks like we have something in the chat. Oh, most excellent presentation. I would have to agree with that, Isaac.
No, thank you. Thank you.
I apologize for my touchy mouse finger tonight. I know I switched you back and forth sometimes before you were ready, so I do apologize for
That's
that.
okay. That's okay. And I was jumping back and forth on topics.
So, but if you need to get a hold of Isaac, his contact information is there. Western Farmers Market Association contact information is listed here. My phone number, our website, and then an email address gets you directly to me. Then we will see you next year, starting January 9th. We will host monthly organic production discussion groups via Zoom. We will take registrations for those early next week and get people signed up to join us there. This program was put on by the TOPP part of the United States Department of Agriculture. That's who our funders are, and we are very thankful for them and all that they do to help us get information and education out to everyone else. So you can find all of these on our YouTube channel at WV Farmers Market Association is our handle. And I want to thank Isaac for all the information he's done over these 6 webinars. It's been absolutely fantastic. And thank you all for your participation and for watching them on YouTube. So good night, everybody.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Yeah, have a good night.
Hey, you too. Hey, it's just us now. Let me stop the recording.